Hey everyone, what's going on? First off, the flashy headline, Chun-Li has arrived, and that crossover energy immediately changes what you'll be seeing in online lobbies and locals for the next few weeks. New character energy always shakes the tree, but Chun isn't just a novelty guest, she's a complete package. She comes with her own arcade and EOS content, and there's a set of Street Fighter tracks added to the jukebox, so the whole presentation carries that familiar electricity even before the first round starts. If you're a Lore's presentation nerd, the menu art updates are a sweet touch, but let's be honest, the real meat here is how she plays and how the system changes shift the entire meta around her. Let's start with a nitty-gritty tweak that's bigger than it sounds. Jump priority over buffered normals when you're holding up or up forward. We've all had those moments where we're trying to escape a throw or a low check by jumping, but our buffered stand jab sneaks out instead and we get scooped or counter hit. And with this change, if you've got that up direction held and a normal is in the buffer, the game favors the jump. That's a quality of life thing you'll feel right away. It cleans up a bunch of accidental grounded pokes and makes defensive jump attempts more consistent. Don't assume this is purely defensive either. Aggressive players who love hop pressure will feel how clean their movement feels out of scramble situations, and anti-throw OS routes get a little smoother because your intent gets respected. While we're talking about scramble control, there's a surgical adjustment to REV Blow interactions that's going to matter in set play. When you counter your opponent's REV Blow with your own, your guard point kicks in from frame 1 in that head-to-head clash. What that means in practice is that if you sniff out a REV Blow and respond with your own, the game gives you the tools to actually win that exchange, rather than trading in weird flaky ways. The knock-on effect is that the move becomes less of a coin flip and more of a skill check. If you're the type who buffers REV Blow as a panic button, prepare to get read and punished more often by players who lab this timing. And if you're that lab gremlin, congrats, you just got paid. Another system-level lever that got pulled is defense scaling tied to S.P.G position. The Axel, Flux, and Final spots now carry distinct defense multipliers, with Final offering the most padding. This is the kind of detail that doesn't jump out at new players, but it absolutely moves the needle for tournament sets. If you're playing a character who thrives in last stand situations, resource dumps, high return gambles, clutch reversals, choosing Final for that extra staying power could be the difference between dying at 3% versus living long enough to cash out a reversal route into corner carry. On the other hand, if your game plan revolves around early momentum, you might stick with Excel, but understand you're taking on a little more risk defensively. Flux sits in the middle as a balanced pick. The overall message here is you can tailor survivability to the rhythm you want. Don't just set it and forget it. Pick with intention based on the matchup and your preferred tempo. Let's talk rev economy next, because this one affects everyone whether you notice it or not. The rev meter now bleeds off faster over time, which is a subtle nudge against endlessly floating in that pressure cook zone where both players spam rev tools to keep momentum going indefinitely. In long strings, you'll feel it. Your ability to keep spending rev to sustain advantage is slightly trimmed. On defense, the crutch of lingering with rev resources as a shield is a tad weaker. What this does for the meta is force a little more discipline. You've got to route cleaner, pick your rev moments with intent, and avoid autopilot strings that assume the meter will be there. Where this really bites is in players who rely on REV Blow as a delayed swing to steal a turn. With faster drain and the frame 1 guard point in counter situations, the slop gets punished more. Clean offense rises, panic offense drops. There are also some tournament-focused tune-ups that don't show up in training mode, but absolutely matter. Ranked point calculation got corrected in cases where a rating match player loses to a rank point player. That's one of those back-end fairness fixes that preserve sanity and matchmaking integrity. If you were grinding and felt your gains or losses were out of whack, the math should feel more honest now. There's also a small but incredibly practical fix in training and trials. When S.P.G is set to Axel ratio, you won't get those replays of the S.P.G. activation effects every time you reset. It's a smoother lab experience that keeps you focused on spacing and timing instead of rewatching a spark every few seconds. And for smart style players, hidden gear can now be assigned in the button config. That's a direct quality of life improvement for folks who run the simplified layout but still want gear depth baked in. If you run into a weird issue where certain buttons refuse to assign, try restoring defaults first as a quick workaround before you panic. There's a known glitch there that's being looked into. Character-specific note. Hotaru players on Smart Style, you had a quirk where a jump after Koshu Da was being treated as a full jump instead of a hop. That's been corrected. That sounds minor, but it tightens hop pressure and makes certain frame traps line up the way they were clearly intended. If your muscle memory built roots around the bug, be ready to remap that feel in the lab. The upside is cleaner pressure, more stable mix rhythms, and less of that, why did my hop turn into a high float frustration? Now let's circle back to Chun-Li and what people should expect on day one of the character wave. Chun usually brings two pillars wherever she appears: control and stability. Her footprint is usually defined by strong mid-range buttons, spacing control through projectiles, and a set of kicks that either check movement or enforce corner carry. If that holds true here, expect her to bully neutral at ranges where a lot of characters are fishing with slower mediums. Jumps against her will feel risky if she's got a reliable anti-air that converts. And if her version of Kikoken sets up that classic walk behind the fireball march, you'll be forced to pick your spots carefully instead of auto-running your pre-patched strings. The presence of a powerful mid-range queen changes what characters can get away with in neutral. Characters who thrive at close-up scrambles may have to work harder to get in, and characters who are already struggling to win the space war are going to feel more squeezed unless they can exploit matchup-specific blind spots. From a content creator angle, this is a golden week to produce matchup primers because knowledge gaps will decide lobbies for a bit. If you main a character with a shallow anti-projectile kit, you need to lab jump timings, low-profile options, and whether your REV tools can skim through a projectile at certain spacings post-patch given the drain changes. Also test which of your far buttons actually dissuade Chun from walking forward. If you main a big body or a slow neutral archetype, your plan shouldn't be, I'll play patient and react. It should be, I'll claim stages of the screen deliberately, the kits, and force a coin flip at the edge of her comfort zone. That's where the jump priority tweak helps, by the way. If you're threatening throw, her defensive jumps get cleaner, which means she'll be braver. You need to show anti-air discipline and preemptive air checks. Don't let her condition you to freeze. On the system side, I want you to set up a couple of easy drills. Record the dummy doing REV Blow at common reversal points and practice countering with your own. Get a feel for the timing that consistently activates your guard point from the first frame. It won't take long to build the muscle memory, and it's the kind of tiny edge that swings a game. Then run mirror tests with Excel, Flux, and Final to actually feel the defense differences, rather than just reading numbers. Pick a common punish route, repeat it across the 3 positions, and watch the sliver of life that remains. The point isn't to memorize math, it's to internalize, if I choose Final in this matchup, I'll survive one more touch, and that enables this comeback resource. You'll start to pick positions with a plan rather than out of habit. There's also a super practical lab task for anyone who uses Smart Style. Go into button config and add hidden gear where you want it now that the option exists. Get muscle memory locked before your next session. If your buttons act weird, hit restore defaults, then remap. Sometimes the simplest fix really is the one that saves your night. And while you're in training, take advantage of the cleaned up reset behavior with S.P.G effects. It sounds tiny, but removing friction from a reset loop means you get more high quality reps, and that stacks up over an hour of practice. Let's talk winners and losers, but in a nuanced way. Rushdown characters with excellent jump-ins quietly benefit from the up priority change because their movement-based offense gets sharper in scramble exits. When they choose to jump, they actually jump. Grapplers who rely on command throws might find their meaty throw checks slightly less sticky against opponents who were previously getting stuck in buffered stand jabs. So, you'll want better throw strike layers and a willingness to preempt air options.